Now going to read chapter 9 of The Secrets of a Sun King. So, chapter 9. The next morning, bright and early, I went to the post office. Deliberately, I chose the one nearest Tulip's house than ours. I didn't want to run into anyone. I knew, not when I was in Mum's black shirt and sweating rather badly. First 9 words are a twopence, the lady behind the counter said, looking down at her nose at me. After that, it's a penny a word. I pray it wasn't obvious. I'd never sent a telegram before. Without my school hair, I might pass as an office junior at an errand. Albert, a young one, with clammy hands. I thought how Tulip would be confident, smiling at everyone in the eyes, and I tried my best to do the same. Here, I slid the money across, all the halfpennies. She counted it, then passed me the form to fill in. 9 words wasn't much. I settled on change of plans, stop. Go to Luxor, stop. Tickets on way, stop. I signed it Mr. Pemberton. When I finished, the post office lady checked it, then sent it off. I tapped my foot nervously, in time with the telegraph machine. When will it be delivered, please? I asked. She glanced at her watch. I'd give it 30 minutes. I couldn't believe it. It's been that easy. And that fast? My optimism didn't last long, mind you. Halfway down the street, I heard the first day's newsboy. It wouldn't have been such a shock had I seen the headline over breakfast, but I ducked out this morning too keyed up to eat. Carter discovers tomb steps as hunt for King Tut closes in. Panic washed over me. So he's found the official tomb, or at least the way in. This is just the sort of development we didn't need. How much longer would it be before Mr. Carter dug his way right inside? How or who would the curse strike then? I couldn't shake off the feeling of danger hanging over us. It was a downside to reading Lysandra's account that this was it. I was worried now that almost everything was a sign. I just prayed Tulip's part of our plan had gone as smoothly as mine. By the time I reached Makepeace Avenue, it was nearly 10 o'clock. I'd come to give Tulip the jar and the professor's translations. Thankfully, she answered the front door, grabbing my sleeve and practically dragging me inside. Have you seen the news this morning about the tomb steps? I asked. She nodded, a finger on her lips, and hurried me to the library. There she shut the door behind us and leaned against it. She looked rather grim. I perched on the sofa next to Oz, who was biting the skin around his fingernails. What's wrong? Has the telegram arrived? I asked. Yes, Tulip confirmed, though I'm afraid Mama got rather upset. My stomach dropped. Doesn't she want to go to Luxor? Yes, of course she does, Tulip quickly reassured me. It's just a bit of a shock seeing the telegram's boy's uniform and his red bike and all that. It reminded her of Anna's of the day we got the news about Alex, that he was missing. I felt dreadful for not thinking about this. Clearly Tulip did too. She hurried on. Anyway, I picked up the tickets and will tell Mama the Washington Post sent them. Fetching an envelope from the table, she waved it triumphantly in the air. Trains to Athens, boats across to Cairo, another train down to Luxor. I've even booked us in at the Winter Palace Hotel and returned tickets for 3 weeks' time. I whistled. It was incredible what confidence the right-sounding voice and a telephone could achieve. Tulip was amazing. I was completely in awe, and so very grateful. I suddenly felt choked up. What I mean is, thank you for what you've done, I stuttered. Don't simmer, Lil, she said playfully. It's not your style. But I couldn't have done any of it, on my own. What if your mum found out she paid for everything, though? I asked, because I still couldn't believe it had all gone so smoothly. She won't go bonkers. Tulip rolled her eyes. I told you before, everything's on the Washington Post account, just as usually happens if I'm sorting out trains for Mama. I wasn't sure if it was genius or madness, but our little crazy plan was working. You're leaving tonight, aren't you? Yes, from St. Pancras, Tulip said. That's 7 o'clock, Continental Express to Athens. Everything was in place. Tulip, Oz and their mum were travelling on the train, on a boat, all the way across Europe and the Mediterranean to Egypt. How I wished with every ounce of me that I was going with them. I couldn't bear even to imagine what that would be like anymore. I took a slow breath. All that was left to do now was to hand over the jar. Opening my satchel, I passed the box to Tulip. "I've tucked the translation inside," I told her and Oz, as she went to take it from me. I suddenly felt a twist of fear. What if this isn't the right thing to do? What if something happened to the jar, or worse, to Oz and Tulip? By asking them to do this for me, and for my granddad, I'd pass the curse on to my friends. "Lil," Tulip said gently, "you can let go of the box." "Sorry, here, take it." It was too late by now to do anything else. By the time I changed into my St Kilda's uniform, I left Tulip's. It was still only 10:30. The plan was to slip into class between lessons unnoticed. I'd hoped that Tulip might come in with me, but she refused, and quite firmly too. "Not a chance, I've got clothes to pack," she said. Funny how on the subject of school, she wasn't her normal confident self. I'd even go so far as to say she was blustering. The packing seemed like an excuse. I expect there was more to her missing school than she was telling me. At St Kilda's, I made it all the way through the quad and along the corridor to English before anyone much as looked at me. Too bad the person who did was Millicent Thorpe, the girl who noticed everything. "Look what the cat's dragged in," she said to one of her many shadows. I didn't know her friends' names, just that whatever Millicent went, they trailed behind her. I did my best not to react, and for a while I managed it. The lesson started, and Miss Parker announcing another spelling test. Not my favourite pastime by anyone's standards, but for once I had to go at all 20 words, and even did a few doodles in the margin for good measure. I was determined not to be glum. A girl called Geraldine, who sat in the front row, was then told to collect our answers. Everyone in the class allowed a brief moment to chat. "How's your new friend, Lillian?" Millicent called out in her snidey, wielding way. I ignored her. "Is she pally with that girl?" Someone else. "The one who never comes to school? I swear I saw them together on the bus on Sunday." I felt an angry blush creep up my neck. "Tulip Mendoza." This was Millicent. "Stupid name if you ask me. And have you seen her hair?" I spun round in my seat. Then the whispering stopped. Millicent sat back, arms folded, as if to say, "What are you staring at?" I turned to face the front again. They could talk about me all they liked, but now they mentioned Tulip, I started to get annoyed. I didn't notice Geraldine hovering near my desk to collect my test, until she said to the teacher, What about Lillian Kane papers, miss? She's drawn all over it." Before I could stop her, she snatched my test and was holding it up to Miss Parker to see. It was only a scribble or two, of Nefertiti mostly, but the whole class went silent. 20 pairs of eyes stared at me like I'd committed murder. "If you've defaced your test, Lillian," Miss Parker said unimpressed, "then you'll stay behind with me after school and do it." I'd not gone to groan out loud. Everyone gasped. I knew then I'd gone too far. Miss Kilda's students never answer back. Behind me, one of Millicent's friends was whispering again. "Going to call on Tulip tonight, were you?" "Can't think of what she'd see in you," Millicent added. "She's stinking rich." Something in me snapped. I got up from my seat, flinged my chair back so hard it screeched across the floor. When I stopped in front of Millicent's desk, she still had that stupid mocking look on her face. In a flash, I had hold of her hair. She screamed, kicking, yelling at me to let her go. "You say one more thing about Tulip," I hissed, right to her face, "and I'll tear your stupid plaits right off your face." "You're insane! You should be locked up," she cried. "And you're a nasty bully," I spat back. "But you don't scare me, or Tulip. She's got more courage in her little finger than you do in your drippy friends put together." I'd have said more too, but Miss Parker's booming my name at the top of her voice. This is how I came to be in the headmistress's office. Though I'd felt wretched, my only real regret was not having stood up to Millicent Thorpe earlier. Bullies like her were probably the reason why Tulip hated coming to school. "Who sent you?" Mrs. Urson Jones, the headmistress, drawled from behind her great desk. "Miss Parker," I said. "And your name?" "Lillian Kai, miss." "And what's your misdemeanour, Lillian?" She sounded almost bored. "Fighting, miss." "Fighting, hey?" She looked at me with a new interest. "You're one of our scholarship students, are you not?" I knew what she was getting at. that my being from a poor family explained why I grabbed Millicent Thorpe's hair, because proper young ladies would never do such a thing. I didn't start it. They were bad-mouthing Tulip Mendoza, Mrs. Jones interrupted. Tulip? The girl who refuses to attend school? Yes, miss. And I reckon I can see why. She's been bullied by Millicent Thorpe and her pals. Mrs. Erskine Jones looked at me, just said that the sky was green. Bullying? Here at St. Kilda's? I hardly think so. Oh, it's true, miss, I persisted. And Tulip's my friend, see, so I'm not going to sit back and ignore it, am I? In my school, that's exactly what I expect you to do, she huffed. You should turn the other cheek. I'd always been told by Grandad and my parents that you didn't think less of a person just because they weren't like you. It came from Grandad's travels to other countries, I suppose, and Dad being overseas in war. You certainly didn't make fun of someone because of their hair or skin, or because they wore glasses and lived on the wrong street. This was plain wrong. Millicent was saying nasty things about Tulip, and it's not right from anyone, I told her. Was there not a teacher in the room? She snapped. Could you not have told her? I shrugged miserably. Maybe then I'd have been called a telltale. Instead, you chose to behave like a thug, Mrs. Jones explained. It won't be tolerated in my school, do you hear? My heart sank to the floor. We all knew what the punishment was for fighting, and Mrs. Jones opened her desk drawer. I squeezed my eyes shut. I didn't want to see how big the birch was. She came to the room to stand in front of me. My stomach now was in a big knot. The smell of her flowery perfume makes me feel sick. Left hand, she instructed. I held it out flat, thinking she'd go for my palm. That's what Mr. Watkins at our primary school did, though his assistant, Mr. Crosby, wrapped your fingers with a metal ruler. Either way, it was bad. I'd seen kids come back from class afterwards with their hands stuffed into their armpits, trying not to cry. Not like that, tutting Mrs. St. Jones grabbed my hand, scrunching it into a fist. I kept my eyes tightly shut. Halfway through the breach, the birch came down. She'd gone for the knuckles. The pain was white-hot, like a burn, a sting, that worst of both at once. She did it again and again. Then she stopped, and the pain got 20 times worse. She might as well have shoved my hand into a fire. When I dared to look up, Mrs. Jones was back behind her desk like nothing had happened. The only sign was there was 3 white wheals on the back of my hand. The pain made my eyes stream. Return to your lesson, she instructed. Yet as I turned to go, there came the worst blow of all. Your parents will be informed of your poor conduct by afternoon post. The marks on my hands wouldn't be too hard to hide. A letter home was something else. Dad would have a flying fit. I'd be grounded. He'd stop my pence pocket money. More than that, though, he'd be disappointed. The quiet girl with her nose in a book was fast becoming a bit of a rebel, and I didn't think he'd like her very much. End of chapter. Okay, now go and answer your questions. Well done.